We're live. You can go ahead, because I have to do a roll call. Sorry.
Ready, guys?
Yep. Regular meeting of the Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, May 19th, 2025, 7 p.m. Roll call. Bear.
Here.
Briggs.
Here.
Coulter.
Here.
Heidrich. Here. Holtmeyer. Padkey.
Here.
Pepsel.
Here.
Sullentrop.
Here.
Please rise, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes from the Monday, May 5th, 2025 council meeting. Bear?
I've read them, yes, if that's what you're asking.
That's what I'm asking.
Thank you.
I'm just the deputy. Give me a break. Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Padkey?
Yes.
Pepsel?
Yes.
Sullentrop?
Yes. Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Coulter to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have Collector Treasurer's Report Summary from February 2025. You have the Investment Report Summary from February 2025. You have liquor license renewals, municipal records disposal, and then the final item that's not listed there, we are looking to table item 7C, which had to do with the ordinance amending section 400. That will have to come back before you because that's going to require a public hearing prior to adoption.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Heidrich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent is approved.
Okay. Priority items. Mayor's presentations, appointments, and reappointments. A proclamation for National Public Works Week. Tony, you can come on up. How about that?
Okay, folks, National Public Works Week, May 18th to 24, 2025. Whereas Public Works employees focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of our residents, business leaders, and civic organizations in the city of Washington. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works employees who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting transportation, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for our residents, business leaders, civic organizations to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in the community. And whereas the American Public Works Association has celebrated the annual National Public Works Week since 1960, and this year's theme is People, Purpose, Presence. Now, therefore, I, James D. Hagedorn, Mayor of Washington, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th through 24th, 2025 as National Public Works Week in the city. And during this 65th anniversary National Public Works Week, I call upon all residents, business leaders, and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing and maintaining our public works infrastructure and to recognize the contributions which Public Works employees make it every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Lots of words, but it's great as long as it works, and if it doesn't, our lives are turned upside down. Tony?
Thank you, council. Kevin and I appreciate the support you guys give us on our departments, and especially for the troops with their, their feet in the mud and the asphalt. So, thank you very much.
Industrial Development Authority reappointments.
Dear council members, I herewith submit for your approval the following for reappointment to the Industrial Development Authority. Bob Dobsch, term ending May 2031. Luke Meyer, term ending May 2031. And Daniel Tobin, term ending May 2031.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Coulter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Police Department promotion.
Good evening, council. If you recall, a couple of meetings ago, I presented and we promoted one of our 2 corporals. So tonight I have another officer to present for promotion, Officer Mindy Schmel. She's been with us 17 years, so held a lot of roles within that time, so she's ready, and I'm excited to present her for promotion.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Motion by Hydrich, second by Patke. All those in all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, and you always catch the Grinch.
Congratulations.
That's right. Additionally, we normally have someone pin their badge. We only had 1 badge, so we're going to simulate that, but I think her husband Jason's going to come up and do that. Yeah.
Police Department appointment.
Okay, so I have an appointment of an officer, Nolan Crawford, if you come up, please. Some of you may recognize him because he did work for us for several years. He left for another position and found out that Washington is his home, so he's returning. I'd like to present Nolan for appointment.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Patke, second by
Hydrich. Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Back.
Welcome back.
Special use permit, 600 East Fifth Street, Recovery Community Center. Sarah?
Get this going. So we have, here we go. Special use permit for a community center, and it is at 600 East Fifth Street of the C2 overlay zoning district, as you can see in the image. This actually has a building right next to it that was at 602 East Fifth Street. They were approved for a special use permit to allow for that intensive outpatient facility in September of last year. I did double check to make sure that everything was going smoothly. We haven't had any issues. So they're coming to us to ask if they can continue or expand that use as a community center below 600 East Fifth Street. So I have, again, an aerial here. You can see where that's located. And then this is basically the location of where they're going to use that community center. It's more for a drop-in for the people that use the facility. It's not a public use. It would just be daytime hours. It would be like coffee, luncheon, things like that, where they can just kind of hang out for community togetherness as opposed to getting treatment. The applicant is here if you have any specific questions that I can't answer, but we're asking for approval so that they can open these doors. I think they have their occupancy scheduled, if not already passed, for this facility.
Sarah, did this go through planning and zoning?
It did. Yes, and planning and
Unanimous.
zoning approved it unanimously.
Name?
Tanya Hankins.
Pull that mic towards you.
Tanya Hankins.
Questions or comments, guys? Okay. Thank you.
That was easy.
There you go.
Yep.
Was easy. Open it up to the floor. Yep. Since this is a special use permit, I'd like to open it up to the floor for anyone who would like to comment, please. Okay, thank you.
Motion accepting the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Al
Bear.
Bear to accept it into the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
An ordinance granting a special use permit at 600 East Fifth Street for use as a recovery community center in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Solo truck.
Introduced by Solentrup. Further discussion or questions, guys? Okay, let's vote.
An ordinance granting a special use permit at 600 East Fifth Street for use as a recovery community center in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Pepsel.
Yes.
Heidrich.
Aye.
Bear.
Yes.
Solentrup.
Yes.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your ordinance, or pardon me, by your vote, ordinance 3B passes. C, please.
Special use permit 3101 Recreation Drive, food tent.
Okay, I mean, I'm going to say the applicant is not here today. He lives in St. Louis, and the storms and the tornado affected where he lives, so he's currently looking for alternate housing while they're getting that fixed. So yeah, so he called me and he would like to be here, but I said, no, take care of your business. So he has a food tent that he travels. He's actually got several locations in St. Louis and in, I think he said Union, just around the area. He did apply a while back for a roadside stand permit, so he has been setting up at N Sports Recreation every Wednesday. I guess they have events there, and so he serves hamburgers there. He wants to obviously get a special use permit so he can do that more frequently. Roadside stand permits are only good for 10 days out of a calendar year, so he's maxing that out. He said that occasionally on Fridays and Saturdays, that would be allowed this with a special use permit. It's really just a tent. There's no truck for cars to pull up to, so you're not looking at a stacking requirement. This is a walk up and get served kind of situation. So I'll try to answer any questions that you might have on his behalf.
Is there any opposition by like in sports or anything
No,
in
they
that lot?
they sent a letter, that's required to have a letter from the property owner that approves that use. So I got a letter for the roadside stand permit that also applies to this.
Darren, just correct me if I'm wrong, but an independent person can have a food truck on their lot anytime they want, but if they want to go through anything that the city owns, you got to get a special use permit?
Well, if you've got several different permits that you have to do. If you want to locate within public areas, we have an ordinance that was passed a few years ago for food trucks. There's certain restrictions, and they're only in certain areas of the city. And that is, I don't believe that's by special use permit. I think that's
No.
by permit. You can go ahead and just apply for that administratively. In this case, the applicant is wanting to go ahead and locate at a spot where they'd be there more than 10 days within a calendar year. So that's what requires a special use permit. You can also request a permit to go ahead and be on private property similar to this. It also has to be, I should preface it too, you need the zoning in place too. I mean, you need to have it be in a commercially zoned area. But if you wish to operate one less than 10 days in a calendar year, you can, that's another permit that you can get with the city, and that's just an administrative permit we issue at City Hall. The only reason when they come before you is when you have a situation where they want to operate and locate at a place, the same spot on private property, zone commercial, more than 10 days in a calendar year.
Thank you.
Take a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion.
Hold
By
on.
Briggs.
Hold on. Wait, well, yeah. Sorry. Public hearing.
Public
Public
hearing.
hearing again. Gosh darn it. Would anyone like to comment on our food tent down at In Sports? Okay. I'll take the motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Briggs, second by Solentrup. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. D, please.
An ordinance granting a special use permit at 3101 Recreation Drive for a food tent in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Briggs.
Introduced by Briggs. More discussion, questions? Second reading, Darren, please.
An ordinance granting a special use permit at 3101 Recreation Drive for a food tent in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Padkey,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Pepsel,
Yes.
Heidrich.
Aye.
Bear,
Yes.
Sullentrup,
Yes.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance 3D passes. Citizens' comments. If anyone would like to come up and talk about something that is not on the agenda tonight, and the Life's River, or not Life's River, pardon me, Peace Lutheran Church, that is on the agenda later. So if you would like to talk about some other issue, please approach the stand, give us your name and your address.
Steve Kinzel. I'd like to talk to the city council tonight. I'd like to talk trash. Most of you have probably heard about the furor that I've created here, and so I wanted to explain it, ask any questions, answer any questions. So everybody in town that got trash received one of these little postcards. The little postcard gave you a choice between whether you wanted a 64-gallon trash cart or a 96-gallon trash cart. And it has, in case of no response by May the 9th, the residents will be provided a 96-gallon trash cart. So I noticed that on the week of May the 5th or so, that I received one of the small carts. And then I started noticing all around town that these small carts were everywhere. And almost nobody had a large cart. So I had my staff contact Waste Connections and ask them what's going on. The first response was, well, you know, we had somebody figure out who the senior citizens were, and we determined they didn't need a large trash cart. I said, oh, really? So you've determined that somebody half my age uses half my trash, or how do you figure that out? So then I sent them a letter and told them that I'm ready to file a class action lawsuit on behalf of every household in this town that was promised a 96-gallon trash cart. Because I suspect that people are going to figure out real quick that 64-gallon trash can doesn't go very far. Yeah, when we get into the holidays, you guys are getting a lot of calls about how come you're only picking up one container. So I get a call back from their attorney, and she says, I understand you're upset because you didn't get a large trash cart. Can we provide you with one? I said, no, we're really way beyond that. I said, have you read your little card? And I read it to her. And she said, well, you know, we had a problem with the U.S. Postal Service. I said, oh, really? I said, so they didn't get the cards out, or you didn't get them back, or what's the problem? She couldn't really answer that question. I said, it didn't make any difference anyway. You told everybody if they didn't send the card back, you're going to give them all 96-gallon carts. She said, well, you know, what would it take for us to get large carts for all your neighbors? I said, you don't get it. I said, all my neighbors are every person in this town that gets trash. And she said, well, you know, those cards weren't very well written. They're kind of confusing. I said, confusing. Let me just see here. Tell me where we get confusion. In case of no response by May 9th, the residents will be provided a 96-gallon trash cart. I said, I think I could give that to my 4th grade granddaughter. I think she could understand that if you don't send the card back, you're getting a 96-gallon trash cart. So then I get over the weekend, the city has promised everybody. First bullet point, during the month of May, residents can expect a 96-gallon toter to be delivered to their curb. So now the city's on the hook because you've also promised it to them. So as I continued with the lady, she said, maybe that card just wasn't written very well. How about just tell everybody that if they want the larger one, just to call and let us know, and we'll trade it out for them. I said, I've already done that. I said, I put it out. All my neighbors put them out. My son and people in Stonecrest put it out. Nobody got their containers exchanged. So I said, I don't think that remedy ought to work. And I said, on top of that, why are you now wanting to shift the burden to the citizens of Washington to fix your mistake? Now, my conclusion, and it's purely my speculation, is we have one of two things going on here. One is it's an absolutely incompetent outfit that puts out postcards and could care less about what they say. Or number two, maybe they figure they can pull the wool over everybody's eyes. Think about it. The larger cart is 50% bigger. Takes a lot more truck time, takes a lot more labor, takes a lot more tipping fees at the dump. I suspect that somebody got figured out here that we should have probably done this in reverse, because now we're going to take a big financial hit when it's all over with. And so when I surmised that to her, she promptly ended the discussion, and I said, I'm going to be up here on Monday night. If you'd like to solve this problem, let me know before now, to which they haven't. I've given them a deadline until Friday at 5 o'clock, and after that, I intend to file a class action lawsuit. We have a statute in the state called the Missouri Merchandising Practices Act. It says if you make a false promise, doesn't have to be intentional, doesn't have to be deceitful, it just has to be a promise that's false. Clearly, when they started taking these small carts around, they weren't going to live up to their promise. And so what I told the lady is, all I want you to do is live up to what you have promised our citizens of our city. And if you do that, we're done. That's all I want. She said, well, how do you propose we do that? And I said, it's pretty simple. You take your 96-gallon trash cart to every single household, put a sign on it that says, if you don't want this one, leave it out next week and we'll take it back. But if you want the bigger one, bring out the small one next week and we'll take it back. She said, well, how many carts do you think that would be? You think that might be a couple hundred carts? I said, lady, we're a town of 14 to 16,000 people. I really don't know how many households we have that have trash in this town, but it's a whole lot more than 200 trash carts. And I said, I don't know what caused your problem. I don't know if you did it on purpose. But at the end of the day, you're going to bring everybody a 96-gallon trash cart. So I copied the mayor. It's probably circulated around to you all. What I really hope is the newspaper picks it up and lets everybody in town know what the problem is. Very conveniently on their little card, no telephone call, no telephone number. You have to jump through the hoops to try to find somebody to call. And I said, you guys could not have made it any harder for a citizen. First of all, you're relying upon the post office to get postcards to us, so a bunch of them probably didn't make that. But I said, on top of that, for some people, they will never figure out how to contact you. And I said, why do you think that's our problem? I think it's your problem. So anyway, I just wanted to bring it to your attention if you haven't been getting calls already, and I suspect you have. That's the promise that I've made to Waste Connections. And unless I hear by Friday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to press forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Steve, so you're expecting a phone call by 5 o'clock on Friday?
I don't know that they'll do anything, but I suspect they might. If they will, I'll be happy to let the powers that be up here know, and they can circulate that word. But if not, that's the remedy.
Have you had your trash picked up this week already?
No. It would be, for me, tomorrow. But I had my large tote out there last week when they promised me, and they didn't do anything there. And for all of the people that expect this to happen, I've had people tell me they don't know what size cart they had, but it looks awful small. I mean, you're relying upon all of our citizens to have to get hold of them without a phone number. There is an address there, that's for sure. But it seems to me that they made a promise, and they ought to step up and honor that promise. So,
I don't have a question, I have a comment, and I'd hypothesize that your bullet A is correct, because every phone call I got wanted the small one and got the big one. So if you'd like to trade, I've got a lot of folks that would do that, including myself, who called and was told they'd replace it the following week, and it's still sitting in front of my home, not changed out. So on the top of the lid, it's stamped with the size. It's the big one. I sent the card back that said small one. I got the big one before the card was due.
Are you a senior?
You can't ask that question in a public forum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a disconnect.
Oh, absolutely.
We've had a lot of emails back and forth, obviously. Some of the phone calls weren't answered by the local office. They were forwarded on to another office, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of same answers unless you've got more on it since then, so.
On May 9th, after we started to notice that they had delivered the cans prior to the date, that was the date that they expected you to send your thing checked off. We called them that morning, said, we got to get a message out. You guys have clearly sent this out saying that you got a choice. We've always been told we've got a choice. I would echo what Al said. I know in Ward 4, we had a lot of 96-gallon containers, I think. I don't know. Tony's back there. He's been dealing with all of the miscommunication and trying to go ahead and sort out and figure out if somebody wants a 64, they want a 96, whatever the case. But on the 9th, we posted on social media. I said, we need a number that people can call if they need to go ahead and change out the size. They gave us a number. That is posted. It's out there. If anybody needs that, I will share that. Charles can pull it up here, and we'll get you that number. But during this whole process of selecting a trash collection, and just give you a little bit of a history behind it, because we got a large crowd that can all listen to the story of how we got to this place. We started 5 years ago with commercial, with getting a contracted waste hauling for residential waste, just due to a number of things that the city was faced with at that time. If we were going to continue to go ahead and pick up trash, a couple of things. We had to make some major investments in some equipment, especially automated trash trucks, which would be very expensive. We had a lot of workman's comp claims with some of our employees that we had to go ahead and deal with. And to be quite honest, just like what they deal with, it's hard to go ahead and find people to go ahead and work on this type of work. So unless you get automated, that's what you see, and that's the reason why we've gone to, you have to have these toters, because every waste hauler that our committee talked to over a year basically said the same thing. We're not going to get out and pick up a little bag of trash. You have to put it in the toter so they automate it. Every time that guy has to get out of the vehicle, as one hauler explained, that's liability going up for us. So we understood that. We said, okay, we know we're not going to get that service, and that was from all of them. I would say, and I don't mind saying that throughout the course of the committee reviewing all of about a half a dozen waste haulers, and we did all the ones that contract with all the other cities throughout Franklin County and some in unincorporated Franklin County, that I was never given any more assurance, I think, of better customer service than the company we had already had for the first 5 years. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I think our staff would say the same thing. At least you know what you have with what you had the first 5 years. But we did talk about the size of the cans, what they could do. And what they listed was the 64 and 96. We had a previous council member that was on there, was worried about elderly people not wanting even that size and wanting to go down to the 35. Because we do have a lot of seniors that go ahead and just put out one bag of trash. So there was a lot of concern about that, but they said, no, the smallest we could do would be the 64. When we asked, how are you going to determine which one you're going to go ahead and place out on the street for everybody, we were told that they were going to go with the 96. That was what they had found to do in other communities. So I personally think, after talking with them, that I think they had two probably different subcontractors that they were working with just to deliver them. And they just went out and I don't want to say willy-nilly as a term, but they just went out and just put them out wherever they could just to get the job done. And like I said, there were parts of town that received the 96 and there were some parts that received the 64. I'm not going to go to their intent as you've taken it to that step, but they have assured us that they will go ahead and switch those out. So that's all I'm going to leave it with. That's our experience so far.
Anybody else have any questions?
Steve, if you're interested in a 96 gallon, for some reason in my yard, I have a brand new one that's been laying there all week last week, and I don't know whose it belongs to, but you're more than welcome to it.
We're way beyond that.
You may have several 96 toters in front of your driveway. I know your address. I've got a 96. I may deliver mine for you.
On your way by.
That's right.
I'll switch with you.
And it's a laughing matter, but it's not a laughing matter, Steve. I know you've got the information in front of you. We've all received those emails and phone calls, more on trash toters than we have on most subjects in the last year. There's no doubt.
Right.
It's very unfortunate, but to Darren's point, the best answer I got was a subcontractor went out the week of the cards, before the cards were even due, and set them out where they thought was best. And that just has absolutely imploded the whole entire works here, where one person you call, like Al said, it didn't just go to a local office, it went to the next level.
Right.
And those were two different answers. And one said we hired a subcontractor, and somehow they got a list of the seniors in Washington, to your point. I don't know where that came from or got to, but it didn't even make sense because people who weren't seniors weren't getting them. So again, it's not just you, it's not just your neighborhood, it's as a whole. But to Darren's point, it was rest assured, if you want a different size, they will get you the different size.
Jeff, the point is, it's their mistake. They need to fix it.
I agree.
The trouble is, we shouldn't have to get the word out. People shouldn't have to put that burden on themselves. This is something they ought to fix, and it's an easy fix. They've got cards. They can prove who asked for the small ones. Take the 96 ones out there and put a note on the top, and the next week come back and swap them out, and we're done. But it's their responsibility, not ours. So to me, it's an easy fix. Now, is it a cheap one? Probably not, but it's an easy fix, and it's their responsibility, not ours.
Steve, did you have to get the phone number off the box, 90 gallon, 96 gallon? Because I tried to call the number that's on there, and I got through for a little bit, and then they hung up on me.
You know, I think my staff went on the internet and chased them down that way.
It's on our website, if you go under, that's where I got it from, and I actually got the local office, and they have fixed a few. I've had a few folks that wanted the smaller one that have already had it replaced and notified me that they have. They have not replaced mine yet. I don't know when or if. For them, it'll be a logistical nightmare to do it. It's not as easy as having that many trash containers on a trash truck as they pick it up. It's
Going to get a lot worse when they get dirty. Right now, they're still clean. They can swap them out. So if they move quickly, they could, but they let them get dirty. Their problem's only going to get worse. So, again, my point is, they created the problem. I mean, you guys are in business. When you make a mistake, if you got a problem, you got to go fix it. And they need to fix it.
I can only imagine that they've done this somewhere else. We're not the first city in the world to have trash toters. So they've had to have fixed this problem before.
Correct.
So,
That's an easy
Gotta fix
fix. It really is.
I agree, they
Yeah.
gotta fix it.
We'll make sure they get it done.
We'll find out by Friday. We'll get it fixed, one way or the other.
Any other citizens' comments, folks? Next one, Darren.
Okay. Reported department heads, the Highland Street grade variance.
Good evening, council. So we have a street grade variance request for over the maximum 10% grade. This is for the Highlands development there, south of High Street. And so this is for connecting the existing Emily Lane that ends at the back of Autumn Leaf right now. You can kind of see where that is. So where Emily Lane ends, currently it's at 10%, and then trying to tie in that grade to make it a through street to High Street. They're requesting a 11.5% grade for 150 feet, as you can see up there. Sarah, can you go to the next slide? So at the end of Emily currently, you can see there's about a 4-foot rise in the grade very quickly, right at where that 10%, where Emily Lane stops currently. So they're asking for the grade variance there so they don't have to blast or break rock any closer than they need to, closest to those adjacent homes that are there currently, but still get that through street, which is important. So I know we've talked about allowing these street variances before, but in this case, it makes a lot of sense. You're coming with a 10%. The over 10% is in the middle of a through street, so still accessible for our, emergency response, for our snow plowing, maintenance crews, stuff like that. Planning and zoning reviewed this last week and approved it, and we got fire department here if you got any, if they have any concerns with the steep grade. So.
You answered my questions. Just, is there going to be anything with being able to maintain the street?
Yeah, and the importance here is that it's going to be a through street. So normally the trouble is if you're on a dead-end cul-de-sac and it's steep and trying to, snow plow and back down those streets is a little difficult. But if you can go through, you can build up speed before you get to the steeper, part of the hill there. It's a lot easier, so.
Charles, didn't we just go through this, well, before I came back on, but didn't we go through this recently?
Yeah, so we had one in another development on the east end of town, but it was like the opposite situation. Brand new development, and then you have a dead-end cul-de-sac that the whole cul-de-sac, more or less, was going to be, right as you turn off the main street, go up 12% for
Fairly short,
most of that stretch of the cul-de-sac, right? So,
Fairly short
and it's a short cul-de-sac, right?
And that was a concern with maintaining that, especially for snow plowing.
Right, and turning off the street and immediately going up, climbing that 12%, where here, you're going up to 10, short run, 150 feet above the 10% and then back down.
Isn't it anything under 700 feet?
What's that?
Isn't it anything under 700 feet, 10% slope?
No,
It's-
that's deals with cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
Cul-de-sacs.
cul-de-sac length is 770.
10% is just across the board for any local street. Any major or collector street is actually 7% as the max grade, so.
I guess I'd like to, if you go back to slide, please. Last week, Tuesday, Charles had a meeting with Autumn Leaf homeowners. I was able to attend, and about, 20 residents, I would say, something like that. They got some other runoff issues there in Autumn Leaf, and this is just one of them. And it was brought to our attention, discussed a little bit, that if you would possibly, and just as an option, if you're looking at the back of this lot line, the lot line on this development to Autumn Leaf is a pretty substantial drop-off, and hence this variance change here. It was discussed that if we would take Emily Lane and stop it where it says 11.58 right there on your map, not continuous that through to the Autumn Leaf subdivision. We have Sophia that already goes through, which is above this to the north. One, it declines our connectivity. It was the plan that we had here, connect both of those streets from Autumn Leaf to High Street. So that is definitely the negative. The positive is this development could then stay a few feet higher in grade. There's a natural berm between the two developments. that would potentially hold water runoff from the Autumn Leaf residents that way. If you go out there and look at it in person, right where that, like I said, where the 11.58 is, you can stand on a terrace and look down and think the water's all going to run here. It's 10 or 12 feet down when you get to Emily, the concrete. It's a big difference. So the water has to run into Emily and down, and it's just, there's an added difficulty there. Not impossible. It's going to take blasting, et cetera. But again, the residents brought it to my attention, and it kind of made sense. So I wanted to bring it to your attention that if we would not connect Emily and make that just a U shape, in other words, this would not go to Autumn Leaf, and the developer could potentially put lots in the corner or an eyebrow, whatever. Again, all this is potential speculation on my part, but if we would entertain the idea of not connecting to Autumn Leaf, I think we could solve some water runoff issues in the neighborhood. So I guess your thoughts. Charles asked me to bring it up here so we could discuss it. Again, the negative is less connectivity. And we've had that precedence that we want to, Emily's a stub street right now, no cul-de-sac, it's just a stop street for future development. So therefore it is set up for this, and I'm in favor of this. I just want to make sure that we can get the water from this development and the runoff not through people's backyards and be detriment to those at this time. So.
I think in talking at the department head meeting when we were going through this, the fire chief had big concerns with regards to not making the connection. They felt that the connection was more important at this point to have the second one. So I know Tim couldn't be here tonight, but I think Mark is here in his place. So I don't know if you want to address any concerns or.
Sure. Good evening, council. Get my mic. Mark Scarnia, Assistant Fire Chief. Good evening, council, mayor, and neighbors. Yeah, we're here. Fire department is always after connectivity. I think it's no secret that over the years, Washington has become a community of cul-de-sac to a cul-de-sac to a cul-de-sac, which eventually leads to a cul-de-sac. And we need grids. And I understood there was a committee formed to increase the connectivity, and this is really a good thing. So, when it comes to the water, we're talking about two different issues here. Water is a development issue. Connectivity is another issue. So, and fire department obviously is after connectivity. This council has, shown good long-term vision. So, stopping connectivity at this point, we feel would be a poor time to develop myopia. Thank you.
Comments, questions for Charles, you guys?
Charles, would the contractor lose any lots by doing the,
By turning it, yeah, they might lose one. Probably not, though, honestly. No, I think they'd still be all right. They wouldn't lose any lots that way. We would lose the connection, and I think, to your point, Jeff, there's ways they can handle that runoff and will handle that runoff. It's just gonna be a little bit more difficult on the developer, but ultimately, they're still responsible for that, so we just gotta make sure that that's handled appropriately.
well, now's the time to fix it, because you don't want to have the developer go and put these houses up and then have problem with runoff.
Right.
Going into somebody's yard, get in their basement, and then we're having that problem.
I totally agree.
Well, Jeff's point, so Autumn Leaf already has an issue, is what you're telling me.
Right.
And I've driven down through there. I can't tell you that I've looked at what their current storm sewer situation is down there. If that, does it exist? Is there a way to handle what they have currently before we even had this?
Well, if you look at this, in the bottom corner of this map is the water retention for this development. And I don't know, I mean, I can't speak for Charles, I'm not an engineer, but I hope it takes it's happening there, I guess. What's running through neighbors' backyards now, when it's done, all needs to run to the retention basin, and that it can handle it is the number one fear.
Because the improvements aren't completed yet.
Because they don't have the improvements in and they aren't directing all of that water
Right.
to the basin right now
Right.
is a huge part of this. And they've directed way more of it now than they were 2 months ago when we had some major storms and they were not set up.
And I'm sure an architect's got a formula that he uses for retention.
Yeah,
for
yeah, we have all the
square-
calculations and over detaining for the water that's going here to offset some of the water that's gonna have to go down Emily, but over detaining in the basin to kind of offset that, if that makes sense.
And we're also talking about, sorry, Steve, we're talking about those monumental rains in April on top of newly turned dirt. That was
Yeah.
the issue.
Absolutely.
And again, I'm just trying to speak for the neighbors that had the issues there. But if we can put the right retention in and the right storm sewer in, then I think that's imperative here on this, so.
More questions or discussion, guys? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
Second it.
Motion by Bear, second by Steve. Other discussion? Let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Please.
So you should have a letter that was drafted by Sherry to go ahead and explain the next item. The city has to go ahead and move into Windows 11 for all of the personal computers within our network. And so if you see the letter that she's given, was provided you, there's approximately 102 devices that are going to need to be replaced. Another 6 are eligible for upgrades. And as well as 30 devices that are already operating with Windows 11 and they require no action. So Sherry met with the department heads to go ahead and work closely to see if which devices that could be eliminated, which ones need to remain, which concluded with reduction of 19 devices overall through all the departments. But in the support of this transition, what NOC, and John's here from NOC if you have any questions, but in order to secure the lowest price for that, we have to go ahead and provide something by tomorrow, essentially, if we want to go ahead and still keep the price low at a 10% discount. At minimum, you're saving about $24,484 overall, or you got another, otherwise there could be an increase of either 10 to 15%, which would add anywhere from that $24,000 to $36,000 to the total cost of the project. So we have an 8-week project timeline beginning in June. The NOC will be going ahead and starting to make those changes. You see the total cost, the grand total is $244,000. The city will go ahead and utilize what we are proposing to utilize are the following funding sources. You have funds available in your capital improvement sales tax that we use for IT services when we need. You have the library fund that will pay for the computers within the library that need the upgrade. The volunteer fire fund is there also for the fire department amount, which is $28,142. And then your enterprise funds, your sewer and water fund, will go ahead and pay for the computers that need to be upgraded in that, and that totals a little over $22,000. So we're recommending initiating these upgrades process as soon as possible to avoid disruptions. We want to go ahead and move, and John's here. He snuck up on me at the podium while I was reading it. So John's got any questions that you may have with regards to this transition? I know I was talking to Councilman Pepsel before the meeting. He's facing kind of the same thing with.
So all these funds that
That's
the
right.
money could come from, they're all gonna be needing new computers also.
Yes, all of these.
And you're not willing to give in a little bit, huh?
I gave in as much as I already could, unfortunately.
I guess my question is, Chad and I sat on a committee to go back and do a contract with a partner here, and we heard nothing of this. And all of a sudden, this is popping up this is the first time I've heard of it. Did we not know Microsoft was gonna do this?
We did, and it was mentioned in our response, that Windows 11. The thing with Windows 11 is that Microsoft turned around and put hardware requirements on it, and that made it a big change in typical turnover. You can't just upgrade them anymore.
How long did you know?
We've known since about December. We started informing all of our partners around March.
That was after budget time anyway, so I guess here we are.
Yeah.
Well, that was my question. We didn't know this at budget time that it was coming. That's what's unprecedented.
Right.
It was difficult to sit there and figure out exactly where. That's why we First step was to go ahead and see which devices we could remove. Thankfully, like I said, we had some from, I know, the fire department, library, several others that we took a few here, a few there that we don't need to go ahead and do the upgrades.
Is there any other alternative, John?
It really isn't, unfortunately.
So Microsoft just has us. If we want to have Windows, we have to do this.
Correct. October 14th, they end support for it, so that means no more patching, no more security patching, those sorts of things. So it's a risk that I don't ever recommend.
Kind of got us over a barrel, 10%. If we wait till the 31st, it's 5%.
So where I'm at is I'm trying to give as much discount as I possibly can. And, you know, in March, we had numbers, but by the end of April, those numbers had increased by 15%. And that's where we're at right now. With tariffs and everything else, it's slightly uncertain.
But if we don't okay this tonight at 10%, it'll be 5% by the 31st.
Could be.
Could be.
Could be more. Could go the other way, where I can't give a discount at all. I can't promise what the market's gonna look like. I was able to lock my vendors in at the rate that we've got right here.
It's fortunate we have some funds.
Is there any value to the stuff that you're replacing?
Not really. I mean, you can try to resell it, but most of those are already nearing 5 years of age and that sort of thing. And then they can't be upgraded to Windows 11 without significant work done to them. I don't really see that you're going to be able to resell them.
Bottom line is, we need it, right?
You need it.
And
The
we're set-
concern would be the security of operating on Windows 10 after, and any computer that we would have that would be operating would be compromising your network, and that's my biggest fear and concern.
I know that the committee wasn't informed of this in timely manner, but I can't see how we wouldn't take it at 10% and lose 5% by the end of the month.
You guys, this shows us that we've got good reserves. Financially, we're in great shape and continue to be in great shape. Every year, there's something unexpected happen, and this year, it's Windows 11. Next year, it could be something else. Hopefully, everybody is safe and that big event happens, but something's gonna happen. I think we're very, very fortunate that we can find the money to do it. This would cripple a lot of cities, and maybe is right now. So I think we need to do it.
Well, to your point, Mayor and Steve and Al, the same thing. It's not like we don't have an alternative.
We don't.
We're fortunate that we have the funds. I'd be the first one to say no way on this, but when you have to.
Yeah.
It's a tough decision. Again, fortunate we have the funds. So, yeah.
We need a motion.
Looking for a motion? I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Pepsel, second by Briggs. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, guys.
Ordinances and resolutions. An ordinance enacting Chapter 655 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri, regulating special residential uses.
Council, in your packet is a
Hold on,
letter.
hold on.
Oh,
Padkey.
I'm sorry.
There's by Cat. There you go.
Just go.
Go ahead, sir.
So there's a letter in your packet that I wrote to summarize the Chapter 655 special residential uses that addresses those long overnight accommodations for certain uses such as a halfway house, homeless shelter, alcohol or drug abuse treatment center, those types of uses. We added a requirement so that we would have the neighborhood voice petition. So we're asking that 51% of a 500-foot radius of that location that is wanting to do that use come to us before we allow that type of use. So this is, again, just a quick summary of that long ordinance that we gave you in that packet. So again, they would have to meet the zoning requirements and obviously those regulations that we're stipulating in this chapter.
So it would be in residential, commercial, or in any zoning district?
Right.
Correct.
So it still have to meet the zoning requirements.
Explain the 51% again.
So a 500-foot radius would be like a buffer around that location. The petition would have to include 51% of those residents that approve of that use at that location.
Do you have that?
That's what they would have to provide before they can.
They don't
move
have to
forward.
provide it yet because this ordinance doesn't
okay.
exist.
Right.
Right.
Right. This is just going forward if we enact this chapter.
We should hear from our citizens.
Is it a public hearing?
It's not a public hearing, but we're going to open, the mayor and I have talked about this. We want to open up the floor to go ahead for comments. Obviously, there's a lot of people here tonight that feel they want to go ahead and address that issue. So the only thing I would do is that we know there's a lot of people that want to speak. We typically, when we get this big of a crowd, we like to limit it to like 3 minutes apiece for people to go ahead and get their points across. Otherwise, we could be here all night. So, and I don't think all of you want to be here all night. But I'll let the mayor go ahead and take over.
Dang, we're going to allow individuals to come up, limit them to 3 minutes. I have one request. Let's argue passionately, state your case passionately, but respectfully. And please address the council. Don't turn around and address your neighbors. So that's all, that's my only request.
Mayor, I'd also like to add a little bit to it. If one of you people come up to talk and you have another person that wants to say 90% of what the person already said, please let it go, because we get your drift, what you're wanting us to do. So kind of hold it to a minimum. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Come on up.
Good evening, and I don't believe that most of the people that that are here kind of, I don't want to say on supporting the work of the Weather Relief Center. I think mostly I'm going to talk, and maybe one or two other people.
Amy,
So-
I'm sorry. Can you introduce
Yes,
yourself?
yeah. So I'm Pastor Amy Appel. I'm the pastor at Peace Lutheran Church, and I live at 36 Durham Drive in Washington. And so I've written this as a letter, which I would like to submit to the council, but I'm going to just share what I've said here. So I'm here as a pastor and a citizen to share my concerns regarding services available for our neighbors who have inadequate or no permanent housing. This category includes both homeless individuals who live either in small encampments and tents in the area or else sleep simply on the streets, and those who live in spaces without adequate heating and cooling, including storage units, sheds, outbuildings, mobile homes, and other structures in our community. These are our neighbors. They are members of our community who have, for a variety of reasons, few or scant support systems. They are vulnerable, often ostracized and ignored, and they need and deserve our compassion and assistance. To be clear, these people are our neighbors. When we learn of their stories, almost without exception, the people who are homeless in our community are from our community, almost without exception. Some of them went to high school with our volunteers. Others owned property in Labadie or New Haven. Some of them have parents who live here in town. They come to be near their parents, but their parents are not in a position to provide support. So these people are, for all intents and purposes, our neighbors. And as a community, we are responsible for the care of all of our neighbors, including those that we might rather not claim. And let me be extremely clear, and I don't like to say this. I'm not saying this to be a fearmonger. I'm saying this because this is the bottom line truth. If adequate services that do not include overnight accommodation in extreme weather are not made available in this community, people will die. People will die, and the headlines will say, homeless person dies on street of Washington, Missouri. That is the absolute truth. In the past several winters, at least 3 people have died in Franklin County by exposure to overnight weather temperatures, cold temperatures. 3 people. Over the past several years, Peace Lutheran, where I serve, has opened our building to these vulnerable members of our community in response to our calling as Christians. It is our intention to prevent avoidable and unnecessary death and injury. This past winter, we opened our building as a warming center, providing a hot meal and other necessities, and then we transported people who needed overnight accommodations to the American Inn, where they slept on small cots with few blankets because they were not permitted to bring their own, 4 adults to a room. I don't know if you know how small the rooms at the American Inn are, but 4 adults in one of those rooms is barely human conditions. Unfortunately, the American Inn arrangement is no longer sustainable. The space at the motel was limited to 4 men and 4 women, and we were able to purchase extra rooms when they were needed and available. For example, we provided a young couple and their 2-year-old daughter with a room several nights over this past winter when they would have been outside in 20-degree weather. Young couple, 2-year-old daughter, 20-degree weather. Unfortunately, the funds that we have used, which cost nearly $30,000 over the course of this last winter, those funds are gone. There are no more funds available to be able to put people up at the American Inn. And frankly, the conditions that they were being subjected to there were dehumanizing. And we do not want to subject anybody to the kinds of conditions that they were living in there. Any assistance going forward will need something other than this.
Amy, can you wrap it up? I'm sorry.
If I promise that I'm one of the few people speaking, can I keep going? Because I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people. For the sake of clarity, Peace Lutheran is not a homeless shelter. We are providing emergency relief, and only when weather conditions are dangerously cold or dangerously hot. And we have been coordinating with City of Washington officials, Mercy Hospital, the Franklin County Community Resource Board, the Homelessness Task Force, Compass, and several other community agencies and churches. Our volunteers are from across the community and across Franklin County. I want to be very clear, this is not Peace Lutheran out here doing this on a whim. We are doing this as a coordinated effort with many other people. There are 30 plus people here who are volunteers. If you're a volunteer or in any way work with the Weather Relief Center, will you raise your hands? If you are a member of Peace Lutheran, keep your hands up. This is not just Peace Lutheran. These are the members of almost every church in town in one way or another, and people who are not churchgoers, who are working with us and with Mercy and these other agencies to do this. And in fact, this past winter, as another winter storm was moving in, we called the city's emergency management office and asked, what are you doing to take care of homeless people in this weather? And the answer was, aren't you guys taking care of that? The city emergency management system has relied on the work that we are doing in order to make sure that people are not freezing to death on our streets. And when the tornado struck in Villa Ridge, I fielded a call from the emergency management of the county seeking our assistance because they needed people to staff a shelter that night for the people whose homes had been destroyed. So we are providing not just assistance for unhoused people, but we are providing a service that the city is not at this time able or willing, I don't know, to provide. We are, of course, aware that the presence of homeless people, especially the chronically homeless, can be unsettling, and we have worked to address these concerns. I know that the people who were going around the neighborhood having petitions signed said that we were not responsive. That is patently untrue. We were extremely responsive and continue to be responsive, and we want to work with our neighborhood. We have gone so far as to ban certain individuals from our property. After we closed for the season, we set and publicized and enforced a property use policy in cooperation with officers at the Washington Police Department who have been extremely helpful to us. While we sympathize with the fears raised by our neighbors as expressed in the petition that you received, I would like to point out that many of the things that were their concerns are just a byproduct of living in a society where homeless people exist. It just does happen. At any moment in any gas station or parking lot, a teenager might be approached and asked for a ride or financial assistance by an unhoused person. That doesn't just happen on our property or the properties adjoining it. It happens in every gas station in town. In any neighborhood in the area, one might encounter loud arguments or swearing, cigarette butts or alcohol refuse. People leave those things around whether they live in houses or not. People are permitted to walk on public streets, and even in nice neighborhoods, they do swear on those public streets. That is just a thing that happens. The worst disturbance that we've ever had at Peace was not from an unhoused person. It was from one of our neighbors in a house who overdosed or took some kind of drug and came up to our building and broke in our window. That was a housed neighbor. That wasn't an unhoused neighbor. In other words, the specific concerns that are being shared with us are not necessarily the result of the activities that are taking place at Peace Lutheran, but of living in a society that has not provided adequate support and care for those who need it, which is what we are trying to do. Not because we want to, but because we are called to. This is how we live out our faith. We are responding to our call as a Christian community. We understand our neighbors' concerns, and we absolutely want to work with them. And we have all kinds of plans for how that might look. I won't go into the details of that, but until changes are made to our society, we will continue to have homeless individuals living among us. The cost of homelessness to our society as a whole is hidden from most of us. But in truth, we all pay for homelessness. Medical care for people who live on the streets, including treatment for frostbite, dehydration, heat exhaustion, illness, and violence against unprotected individuals with nowhere to shelter, that all comes out of our pockets when we go to the hospital. The hospital provides those services, and we pay for it. And those are much worse when people are living outside. The cost of regulation and cleanup, especially biohazard cleanup, is transferred to us through our taxes, through the cost of police hours that it takes to get people moved along or whatever else the police might have to do. The cost that it costs for people who need to have biohazards clean up on their property. Schnucks, I'm told, had to pay $12,000. If you don't think we're picking up that bill, think again. We are paying extra so that the businesses can clean up after people. We are trying to provide a service so that that does not have to happen. I could keep going. I will finish with this. I want to share with you, this is in the words of one of our guests. They left this note on our door on Thursday, a handwritten note, and it says, "Thank you. I want to thank everyone who has helped me and us in a time of need. I do not take advantage of your gift of love. I cherish each and every one, big and small. I love you all. Jesus has come through me to allow me to leave this gift of thanks. There is God in each and every one of you. Follow in his footsteps, and you have saved me and many others simply and with complexity, but always with a loving heart and understanding." In other words, the people who are sitting on our streets because they do not have anywhere else to go, they find compassion, they find dignity. We are doing the bare minimum for these people at our location. And we are asking for the ability to continue to do that, not because this is something that we so desperately want to do, but because it's something that we have to do as a society. And if the city can't do it, we will do it. We cannot possibly not do this. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Anyone else?
I wasn't really prepared to do this, but I'll give it a shot. James Overschmidt, 6 Scenic Drive, Washington. So, my family and a lot of the people here are literally neighbors to the church. And to a person, everyone we spoke to, in and around the neighborhood, first thing they said was, everybody's compassionate for the needs of homeless or disadvantaged. But our question, our issues are with the location where they're doing it, and that there doesn't seem to be any kind of screening, vetting, or anything. It's like an open invitation, and people just come from all over on their bicycles, walking with their backpacks, everything they own, and just coming from all directions, and we don't know who they are. We don't know where they've been, what risks they pose. And I could just give a few bullet points of individuals approaching, approaching us on our property, coming to our door late at night, approaching my daughters on our property, asking for rides, 18-year-old teenage daughter. And then, any of the people, behind me could give their examples. But, so we're not saying there isn't a need for what they're doing at the church, but we just disagree with the location. And it was a couple years ago, she came to visit us in our yard and talked about what they were doing. It wasn't, do you mind if we do it? It wasn't, seeking the neighborhood's approval or anything like that. It was like, this is what we're doing. We're going to try to not make it a problem. But it has grown and continually gotten worse from the time it started, from 2 years ago. And it's not just during the hours that they publish that the cooling center or the warming center is open. It's all times of the day and night, people in and out, staying there overnight.
Hey, down, please. One at a time.
I've got pictures. I photographed a guy setting up his bedroll at 10 o'clock at night, and he was there the next morning at 6 a.m. when I was leaving. So it's not the first time, it's not the only time. I just didn't get a picture of every instance, but I took a lot. And other people have pictures too. So I'll try to keep this to 3 minutes, but we're just asking for, we just don't think this neighborhood is the right place for it. If all these other organizations are behind this effort, maybe another organization has a place that wouldn't be as impactful to some neighborhood. I don't know, but we just don't think that this should be in the middle of a well-established neighborhood that, let me just ask the question. Would anybody that volunteers there want this next door to them? I don't know, but do it.
Oh, no,
I'm not asking for a response, rhetorically. So, anyway, we just asked for some relief. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Glenn Williams. I live at 8 Scenic Drive on the corner. I work downtown St. Louis. I get up at 2:30 in the morning by choice. I leave around 3 a.m. I have seen these people in my yard. I have seen these people on the street at 3 a.m. I've seen them across the street at the rectory. I've seen lights up at the grotto. I have seen these people walk in and out all day and all hours of the night. Well, that's your opinion. I've seen them come down from the church. I've seen.
Hey, folks, they have the floor. Let's let them speak their piece, please.
I can sit on my front porch and did yesterday, and the man walked down from the church, and like I said, I'm on the corner lot. He just cut it right across my lawn. Didn't care.
With all their grandchildren out there playing.
Okay, so I can do this in 3 minutes or 35 seconds, but no, I don't want it in my neighborhood. It's my opinion, and that's my choice. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mary Catherine Williams, 8 Scenic Drive, wife of Glenn Williams. I have a great heart and compassion for homeless. I have volunteered. I have participated in helping. My only concern is this is a small area right in the center of a neighborhood. My concern is as James said, the vetting process. How do we know? I work from home most of the time, so if I'm sitting in my office or on the corner, I see this street. If I'm in my backyard in my pavilion, I see them walking by. I have witnessed them walking by, almost hallucinating, talking to things, hitting trees with things, yelling, that enough to get my attention if I'm working in the garden to walk over and see who's arguing, and it's a single person. How do we know that these are not people that are using drugs and that are, I've seen them, as I call it, tweaking and acting. I have 12 grandchildren that play around my entire yard. This is really, really troubling. Little tiny ones will talk to anybody. They will walk across the street to the neighbor. This is scary. This is really scary. I have a great heart and compassion for those, and I donate. I would even donate to a better location. But in the heart of a neighborhood here, where I have seen them walk across our lawn, come up to our backyard, when he leaves in the middle of the night, he sometimes has to circle back around because they have seen him leave at 3 a.m. It's really troubling to watch people arguing going up and down the street, to watch people acting like they're hallucinating. I'm frightened for my grandchildren. I don't think this is the right place for this. I'm all for it. I think the city needs to do something, but we have to protect our neighborhoods from. How do we know what they're vetting and what they're allowing? Is that just is a volunteer's choice and what they think? I mean, and shouldn't there be the playground for Our Lady of Lourdes is right across the street from my driveway. I watch my grandchildren play on that, and I watch them walking by. It's my understanding that there's an ordinance that it has to be 1,000 feet. If there's any kind of place like this, it has to be 1,000 feet from a school. If somebody could look into that, and because it's within 1,000 feet. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Claudia Nelke. I live at 2 Scenic Drive, within a couple hundred yards of the church. And I agree with Mary. I think there's a very large need for some type of support from the community. However, in the middle of a residential area where the church property borders many homes, young children or young teenagers live in these homes. The individuals and the church, the representation here apparently doesn't realize the activity that goes on because there are not church cars in the parking lot 24 hours a day. My husband and I have made a practice of observing and making a round around all sides of the church on a regular basis. I would say nearly daily there are, and I know that the pastor mentioned that it's during extremely hot temperatures or cold temperatures. It's been spectacularly beautiful, and there were people there today. And there were no church people there other than someone doing gardening, not someone. So they're camping out on the church property on a regular basis. They are spending the night. I know one night we came back around midnight from somewhere in Washington. There were 6 in the back and 3 in the front spending the night, and the weather was beautiful. So there's a lot of activity and homeless activity that their outreach programs are creating a culture in the neighborhood. I ask any of you, would you buy a home, a $500,000 home next to a homeless shelter? I doubt it. It's taking down the value of our property, although they may not admit it. I think it would be very difficult to sell a home on a street where you're 100 yards from where I've got people rolling their roller bags down in front of my house, headed to the church. It's just not a good place to raise kids, to have, I'd be afraid to let my grandkids out. I know one neighbor doesn't let their daughter play in the yard anymore. It really is not suited for a residential neighborhood. Thank you.
My name is Tammy Clark, and I live in Washington. I volunteer with the homeless, it is not a homeless shelter. That's the first thing that I want to substantiate. This church is not a homeless shelter. We supply food and personal items, clothing, shoes, socks, whatever these folks may need. They cannot come and go during the day because the door is locked. Yes, that they do sit on our back patio sometimes. I'm not going to deny that. But these people, I don't
Folks, she
feel that
has
people
floor.
need to make assumptions about other people that they have never spent time with, that they don't get to know. I will admit, they can be a little intimidating. I'm not going to deny that. But these people, and I don't even like to call them these people, they're in the situation they're in, not necessarily by choice, but this is how they were brought up. They don't know other ways to live their lives. 99.9% of them, as well as we know them, are harmless people. Some of them do have mental issues, that they do appear to be talking to themselves, that they do reach out for things, but these people are not going to hurt anyone. And I understand their points of view about not wanting their children and grandchildren out. I understand that. But these folks aren't going to hurt anyone. They're not going to take stuff that isn't theirs. So we are not a homeless shelter. I want that to be very well known. We provide services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Michelle Kreider. I live at 121 East 2nd Street here in Washington, and I'm the director out at Loving Hearts Outreach. Living at 121 East 2nd Street, I see people rolling their carts down the road all the time. I live 2 blocks from where Harmony used to be. I've never been broke into. I have 4 grandchildren. I have 2 children. My house has always been safe. My house is still going up in value. This is the 3rd time that I've stood in front of this council trying to get something passed or not passed for the homeless in this city. I have seen on Facebook over and over, I've been there 24 years. In 24 years, how many times I've heard people from the city say, what are these organizations doing? What is our city doing? What are the police doing? What are people doing? Why are we seeing people sleeping at the park? Why are we seeing people sleep on the side of the road? We are doing something, and every time we get there to where something is being done, we're stopped. These people are not dangerous. They're just not. I have been around them for many years. Like Amy said, they are from here. almost every one of them from here. Their parents are from here, they went to school here. They're not dangerous. I've lived right next to Harmony until they moved for 10 years. Never had a problem. Harmony's not even there, and I see people, there's homeless people walking by our house. Never had a problem. I understand if it's new to your community, but they're gonna be somewhere. And eventually, we're gonna have to do something to help these people. And passing ordinances that fight it and fight it and fight it, where are they gonna go? Otherwise, they're just gonna keep going in the police station at night when it's 4 degrees. They can't go to the hospital anymore. They're people, they're humans. They need a place to go. So when we have a church that is opening their doors when it's hot and when it's cold and to give them a meal, let's let them do that. If they're sitting on the back porch of that church, so what? A church can't decide who they're gonna let sit on their back porch. I mean, stopping this is just causing another problem. We finally found a church and an organization that's going to help these people. So I am urging you to not pass this ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to come speak?
Thank you. My name is Donna Eichels. I appreciate you hearing me. You're kind of between a rock and a hard place, aren't you? And I agree with both parties here tonight. I've had a history of working with the homeless through other organizations in St. Louis, and I understand people's fear of the unknown. I also was here several years ago at a council meeting when an opportunity came before the city to acquire a building that, to my knowledge, was being given or offered to the city for a homeless shelter. And out of fear, others spoke against that location because it would hurt their property values or be a detriment to their way of life. And that opportunity was let slip by, and now that place is a place that sells weed. So what did that do for that community? As much as I love Washington and so many things that are done here, I have noticed a tendency to vote down those that are less fortunate, vote down a house for veterans who have served us, vote down a place for the unhoused to stay or be comforted. There are many organizations here in Washington that do their best to help the unhoused, and they ask for a place that could be a central location so that the services are only provided once, not over and over. So I don't know about your ordinance here, but I do think it definitely behooves the city to get a hold of this situation. I remember a few years ago when I came to the other meeting, at that time, a lot of people were denying that Washington even had homeless people. You seldom saw it. But now, over the ensuing years, we see the homeless everywhere. And there's no denying it. We need to help people. So I would just ask that whatever your consideration is about ordinances or the homeless, that you take the opportunity to get ahead of the matter and to organize it from your end instead of pushing it down the road again. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ron Obermark, 1306 Zero Avenue. I live right next to Peace Lutheran Church. In the process of doing yard work, I picked up drug paraphernalia. I don't know exactly what the paraphernalia is because I don't do drugs. But anyway, didn't like that. I have a next door neighbor that used to live there, and she was scared to death of all the homeless that was coming by her yard and everything, and she put her house up for sale and sold it. So I don't quite understand if these people want to provide their houses, which a bunch of them raised their hands earlier, put their name out there on Facebook, let them live there if that's what they want to do. But I don't see the preacher or anyone else providing their personal home or their personal space for a place to live. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. I'm okay with it. But single-family housing, the church was very nice. When it was a little bitty church, they used to have weddings over there all the time. I haven't seen a wedding lately. So evidently, a lot of the young people aren't interested in that church either any longer. That's all I have to say. I'm totally against it. I live right next door. I see all the traffic. I see the police over there frequently. That's another opinion.
My name is Grace Appel, and I am a youth member of Peace Lutheran. I don't think that the number of weddings have any relevance to to the work that we are doing. And that it's unreasonable to ask individual people whether they would house homeless people in their own homes. That is the reason why we are opening our building, because so that we aren't going to, so that no one has to house them in their homes, so that there's a place for them to go. And assuming that no one who volunteers at the shelter has opened their homes to unhoused people is very presumptuous. We are trying to, we're trying to provide a place for people to go, and if Peace Lutheran's building is not allowed to be that place for them to go, there is no other place that they will go. And I think everyone at Peace Lutheran probably would like to see in the future there be another location that is better suited to this. But at the moment, there is no location that is better suited. And if we stop Peace Lutheran from being the location right now, there will be nowhere for them to go. So the solution to this problem is not this ordinance. The solution is going to be more long-term. Thank you.
And unless we've got something new to add, let's start to wrap it up, please.
I'm Archer Lowe. I used to live in Washington. I now live in Union. I'm 20 years old today. When I was 18 on March 30th of 2023, I was homeless per my parents' decision. I was still in high school. I was to graduate May 25th of 2023. There was nothing, nowhere for me to go at that point in time, and I didn't even know a Peace Lutheran Church at that time. I was very thankful to live with my friend at the time, but I was couch hopping. I had a lot of stuff in my car, and it was very stressful. So for someone to come up here and be like, hey, let's have people opportunity to have their own individual homes to have someone live in, not everyone is suitable for that. My friend had to ask her parents' permission for me to live in there. And even then, I had 5 different friends who had to ask her parents' permission. They knew me, but they weren't in the place too. And so not everyone can, even though they can donate or volunteer, they can't always put their home up for a volunteer for someone who is homeless. I do not do drugs. I do not smoke. I was a straight A student, had a GPA of 3.8%. So I've never done anything against the law, and I do recognize that there are some homeless people who do drugs, but when you meet them, they're not harmless. And when you take away an opportunity like this, where if I was homeless during the summer, during those hot places, I'd have to go there. And during the winter, I'd have to go there. But you're denying an 18-year-old who's trying to graduate a safe place. And they need a place to go, regardless of their age, so then they can graduate and be a citizen of Washington or Union or Sullivan or anywhere in Franklin County. They need a place to go, and if you're not going to make that an opportunity for people, then you need to let them do this and let them grow, because maybe they can find a different place, a more suitable place that isn't right up against this neighborhood. But for now, unless they're willing to propose a different idea, there needs to be a place for us and for the future of Franklin County, no matter their age.
Thank you. Folks, I think this would be the last speaker.
Matt Hummel, 4 Scenic Drive. I know there's been some talk about the fear of kind of the unknown when it comes to homeless. I just want to say from a resident standpoint, it's not so much an unknown, it's what we see. And I'll be the first to tell you that, you know, a lot of the people that come by, friendly people. They'll say hi, you'll say hi, they'll say hi back, no big deal. But there might be 1 in 10, could be 1 in 100. There was one a couple weeks ago, about 5 o'clock. We witnessed a man throw a woman down to the ground. And so, you know, that's a small chance, but I'm the guy with the 10-year-old daughter that I don't let play in the yard anymore. So I don't know if it's 1 in 10 or 1 in 100, but whatever it is, I don't like those odds at all. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Matt. Folks, thanks for your comments. Councilman, I think, has everybody heard from our folks? Would anyone else up here like to hear more?
Mayor, I'd like to ask the lady from the Lutheran Peace Church to come up here again. I forgot your name.
Amy, Pastor Amy Appel.
Amy, could you give me 2 of your best bullet points of what you do for those people?
We provide meals and supplies if they need hand warmers or socks or coats. And many people who are homeless spend all day wearing the same pair of socks that is soaking wet. So, you know, they'll wear those same socks for days and days. We provide them with dry socks, dry underwear, a place where they can come in and take a sponge bath. That's what we provide. It is what we would like to be able to provide is a place where people can stay overnight so that they're not sleeping outside. We have spent time working with Darren and with the mayor in conversation, trying to think of other places in the city where, I mean, we got volunteers. We'll bring the volunteers somewhere else. It doesn't have to be at Peace, but it needs to be somewhere where people can access, which would be somewhere in the city. I don't know, the city auditorium. It's also in a neighborhood, but there's got to be somewhere where people can be out of the weather. And we have offered our building for that, understanding that we do not meet the fire code as it is. And so we've been preparing to put sprinklers into our building in order to meet the fire code so that we can have people stay overnight and with supervision. I understand that that's not what our neighbors want. Absolutely understand that. But there has to be somewhere where they can go, where they can, we'll bring our volunteers there.
So the way I'm understanding this, a person comes up there, you get them socks, clothes, whatever, feed them, whatever, and they have to leave at a certain point of time of day?
When we are open, I'll use this past winter, when we are open from 6 to 10 p.m. And then we ask people to leave our property. If we're open, they leave our property at 10. If we're not open, we've asked people to be off of our property at 8 o'clock in the evening, so at dark. We've asked people to leave our property. We have worked with the police a few times, that when the police have come, if a neighbor calls and says there's somebody sleeping there, the police come up and ask them to move on. We've only trespassed, so to speak, people who have been somebody that we couldn't deal with or whatever. But we've not banned anybody from our property just for being on our property after dark. But we have signs on the building that say that we would like people to be off the property by dark, and we allow them to sit there, because where else did they go? There's nowhere else that they can go to the library, which we've heard plenty of feedback on that as well, and they can come and sit at our church or sit in the park. That's
Thank you.
pretty much it. Yeah. Anybody else want to ask me a question?
You had mentioned something about, sorry, just briefly. You had mentioned, and I heard several of your folks who spoke on your behalf talk about services. And I guess I look at this place, yeah, it's great to be able to provide the socks, provide this, but are you guys intending to provide more services? I mean, how about let's help them find a job? How about let's
You ever
help
spoken
them
with
find,
any of these folks?
find a place to live,
We work-
and not have to walk
We
in
work
there
with
every night.
Compass, and we work with Mercy, and we work with the Franklin County Community Resource Board. We are not equipped to find people jobs, and to be frank, many of the people who are chronically homeless, you would not hire. I can guarantee that you would not hire many of these people because they walk down the street talking to themselves. They have mental illness. I'm not denying that, but nobody's going to hire them, and there is nowhere for them to go. And just because they are mentally ill does not mean that they should be freezing to death on the street. And we just want to give them a place where they can sleep out of the cold. And we have said from the very beginning, we are doing this as a stopgap measure until there is a more permanent solution. And we absolutely, desperately would love for the city to take the lead on this matter and provide a space somewhere else. We will bring the volunteers. We have people donating money. We've got all of that. We don't have a space. There is no other space in town that we have been able to locate. If somebody has a space that they want us to use, that's terrific, we'll do it. But it can't be in the industrial district because nobody can get to the industrial district. If there's no transportation, we don't have public transportation, not everybody can walk. Many of these people are being put out on the street by the hospital when they're better according to hospital standards, but they can't walk. They've got a boot on their foot, they've got a broken ankle, they've got whatever. So this is the dilemma that we're up against. Absolutely, if the city will take the lead, we will follow, we will help lead that charge. But until then, we can't just leave them on the street. We just can't. To do so would be an abdication of every bit of human decency that we have. And frankly, if we want to claim ourselves to be a Christian nation, we have to take care of the homeless. This is the main thing Jesus talked about. I don't know how much more plain it could get than Jesus saying, what you do to the least of these, you do to me. That's Matthew 25:40. He's pretty clear on what we're supposed to be doing as Christians, and that's taking care of the least of these. That's what we're doing. We're doing that at a church because the church is a church. What else is it going to do? I am sorry that people who bought property next door to a church didn't expect the church to church, but that's what we're doing, is churching.
All right, ma'am. All right, thank you.
Sorry,
you got way over your 3 minutes, so thanks.
Hey, Jim, I got a question for you. Are you frequently called up
You gotta come
to
the podium.
this?
No,
No,
I
can talk
police
to
chief.
Oh, I think.
Are you frequently called up there on calls, and so what are they referred to?
Are you frequently? No. We have been called there at their request and by some of the neighbors, but it's not frequently, no.
And what were the calls for?
Just peace disturbance, just off the top of my head, peace disturbance. There was a trespassing or two that we were called there also on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions, guys? Discussion? Folks, this is not an easy issue. All of us feel that way. I know I do. I wish I could speak with eloquence. I would love for Washington to find a solution. Dearly love that. What that means, what that looks like, I don't know. May I suggest, this is shooting from the hip, Washington Homeless Task Force. I know it doesn't help for a vote tonight or not. More discussion.
Well, I think the consensus here tonight is that something needs to be done.
Absolutely.
But I think we're here because of fear of the residents of what is happening in their neighborhood, and that's really what.
Absolutely.
So it's not that, and again, I kind of take a little bit of resentment to the fact that no matter how I vote, if I'm Christian or not, because you have, a lot of people have spoke, they're compassionate for these people, but the results of their behavior makes them fearful in their own homes, and therefore we're in a situation of where we're at. I guess I will say to those who volunteer, thank you. And the looking into a different location. Yeah, we've been here before, but to get that, harder than we've thought as far as that goes. But to Councilman Pepsel's point, get them a job. I mean, you're talking to the wrong guy when you say they can't have a job. There's people that work at Impact who, the guy does an amazing job, and everybody out there does an amazing job. So I guess it's not a cut and dry. So when you sit here and say these people would never have a job, and people would you can't just put them down to that's all they need. We just got to provide for them all the time. But again, I'll just go back to say that there's compassion from everybody. We got to do something about it, but you have to understand that your church is in the middle of a neighborhood and those people are fearful for their homes. So the vote is not that we want to do nothing for the homeless and we're voting for I guess I'm talking to my opinion here, but the residents are fearful and that's what we have to protect in that aspect, and therefore look for another location is my opinion. Thank you.
We still need to either vote or table this. Is
Well,
that
you've
correct?
got, you've introduced, it's been read once, we've introduced it. If you want a second reading, let me know. I'll wait till your comments are done.
Okay. I think all the talking's been talked.
Introduce.
Okay.
Second reading.
An ordinance enacting Chapter 655 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri, regulating special residential uses. Padkey.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Pepsel.
Yes.
Heidrich.
Aye.
Bear.
Yes.
Sullentrop.
Yes.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance 7A passes. It's not over.
Yeah, let's roll.
Daryl.
We're moving.
May I ask exactly what that means? I understand a radius and notifying your neighbors, anybody, of anything that they want to do. And you're saying 51%. So is some official from the city going to go around each home in a 100-foot radius
No, I can speak to that, ma'am. We would look, we've got, with our mapping system, we can go ahead and determine the number of property owners that are within 500 feet. If we see that we've got a petition signed by 51% or more of those people within that 500-foot radius, that would constitute that, yes, that in this case, you need that in order to go ahead and get your petition put together so that you can get occupancy for any one of those uses that are listed within the ordinance.
So the city does send out,
We don't send it out, we just go ahead, it's up to the applicant then to go ahead and turn in their application with 51% of the owners within 500 feet to go ahead and sign that in order for the city to go ahead and move forward with the occupancy.
or vice versa.
If we determine that it's not received, then the city cannot issue the permit. That's what the ordinance reads.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I want to make sure that I understand the ordinance itself. So does the ordinance apply to providing shelter? Does the ordinance apply to providing meals?
It provides, I can try to answer your question. The first question is, yes, it applies to a shelter. It's specifically mentioned as a shelter for the homeless, halfway house, or social rehabilitation facility, or an alcohol and or drug abuse treatment center. I will go a step further in talking with Mark, since he's the one that provided us with the ordinance. We're talking about facilities, though, that offer overnight accommodations.
Overnight
primarily.
accommodations.
Yes.
So if we provided meals, that would not be in.
To my understanding, would not constitute this.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Okay. 7B, please.
An ordinance providing approval and acceptance of minimum improvements for maintenance for Stonebridge Plat 4, Phase 3 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Mayor.
Council, this is for accepting the minimum improvements,
Charles.
including...
Charles.
I got it. Go ahead.
It's accepting the minimum improvements, including streets, sewer, water, storm in Stonebridge Phase 3. Includes a 2-year maintenance agreement and 20% maintenance bond in the amount of a little over $100,000 to cover those improvements. Any questions?
Discussion?
An ordinance providing approval and acceptance of minimum improvements for maintenance for Stonebridge Plat 4, Phase 3 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Pepsel?
Yes?
Heidrich?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Sullentrop?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, 7B passes. We're tabling C.
We are tabling C, correct.
D
And
then, please.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for Chad's Acres in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Okay, so we have.
Hold on.
Right?
Patke.
Patke, thank you.
Thank you. Some property that we looked at actually not too long ago when we did some code revision for the R2 overlay district. These were the example properties of undeveloped lot and a lot that needed to be, a house that needed to be torn down. So since we passed those, the code changes for setbacks and the lot size requirements, we have had a developer purchase these, tore the house down, and now in the attempt to redevelop, they have found that they do not have access to water and sewer at the lot at 208 East 6th Street. So you can see in this map, the green lines and the blue lines, blue is water, green is sewer. They run on Walnut and Locust Street, so that lot is kind of stuck without access to that unless there are easements that run through either one of those properties to the east or to the west. So the developer is proposing that we add easements to Lot 2 and Lot 1. The north side of those properties will be for electric, and then the south side will be for the water and the sewer to run to Lot 1 from Locust Street. And I think my applicant is here. Yes. So the applicant is here if you have any questions about that.
So they're just putting the easement there.
They're just putting easements on it.
Not changing lots.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're gonna do the yeah, okay.
Is the neighboring property hooked from the other side then? Is there an easement across?
For the lots on the west side,
West, yeah.
I haven't looked at their plats, but they have water and sewer. They've been there for a while. So where that's running, I'm not sure.
I'm just looking at the electrical runs all the way to that lot, like they're gonna give them easement there, right?
Yeah, I think they're just covering their bases.
Gotcha.
Going through the whole width of the lot. The previous use of that lot, I think, was a garage, so there wasn't any connections in the past, and that was, torn down well before my time, but
Yeah.
it's been empty.
Other questions? Second reading, please.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for Chad's Acres in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Padkey?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Pepsel?
Yes?
Heidrich?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Sullentrop?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance 7D passes. 8, please.
Commission, committee, and board reports. Preliminary plat approval, Poppy's Place, 5415 and 5475 Highway 100. You got this, Sarah?
Yeah, so we just went to planning and zoning with this particular case. We have property that is deeded as one lot, even though it looks like it's 2 or 3 lots in this picture. MoDOT came through and took over some of that property, so that's why it looks like this. The preliminary plat was approved by planning and zoning unanimously, and there is a variance request that because they are subdividing this property, that the utilities, the public improvements do not have to be made because of some very tricky details. So we have some, I'm showing you a picture of those properties with a measuring tool that measures the distance from the property to the nearest sewer and the nearest water. So the first we're looking at is the sewer connection options. And one of the options on the bottom part of the screen, you can see that they would have to run the sewer from Lot 1 all the way up to the manhole on 5th Street, which is about 1,500 feet uphill. The other option would be running it all the way down to the lift station that's at Recreation Drive, and that is a 2,200 feet downhill. So it's quite a distance, and you're using MoDOT right-of-way to do that, so that would be a near impossible task. Water connections are not as tricky. Again, going uphill from Lot 1 to the nearest water line, which you'd have to cut across 5th Street to connect to that water line, or going downhill just a little over 1,000 feet to the nearest water line. That one's a little bit of an easier connection for Lot 2, and I'll go back to those slides. So you can see Lot 2 would be a lot closer to that water connection. Lot 1, of course, would not be. So that Lot 1 has a building on it, Accessories Unlimited. They've been there since before it became part of the city, and they've been working off of a well and a septic system and with no problems, no issues. And so the petition that was filed by the applicant was to say, we are not in any position to install to those nearest water lines because it's a hardship, and the city will not be extending those lines anytime soon. So we're not asking for them to post a bond to guarantee that installation. We're just asking that you approve the exception with the verbiage stating that they will not need to do so, and that is on the plat, on the preliminary plat, and it will be on the final plat as well. And here is our code verbiage, just to remind you that you do have the power to offer this variation if it's not a detriment to public safety, health, or welfare, if these conditions are unique, which they are, that the particular shape or topographical conditions cause that hardship, which they do, and that they do not vary the provisions of the zoning order, master plan, or major highway plan, which they do not. So this is, of course, this says final plat, but this is the preliminary and then the subsequent final plat for this subdivision. I know it's a lot to digest, but feel free to ask any questions.
I've got a question for Mark on this. With the language that Sarah read with regards to the plat, it's noted on notes 5 and 6 on the final plat about them not being obligated to connect to public water and sewer. Would this supersede, if, let's just suppose that water and sewer did become readily available due to some other development or for some reason, would that language supersede and protect them from having to hook up to that if water and sewer became readily available?
That question came up at planning and zoning the other night also, and my response to that was if there is a large enough development that can't be served by septic, at that point they're going to have to make some application or some arrangement to get public sewer to the property.
So if someone built one house there or had one commercial property there, they could stay on their own septic system?
Yeah, I mean, if there's one house or one relatively small building that could be served by a septic, yeah, they could.
We wouldn't require them to hook on to sewer.
Somebody asked
That's
the
what
other night.
that's what they're seeking the variance from you as
No,
a
that's what I'm
council
asking
tonight.
him. If
Yes.
someone would build another building next to Accessories Unlimited, and we would make it mandatory to hook up to sewer, or they could use a septic also?
No, this lot, this
On
variation
lot
on this
one?
lot, they would not have to hook up.
No.
Oh, okay.
The question I think the other night was if somebody wants to build a big box retail on lot 2, you would probably not be able to serve that with septic. I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but at that point, if they would have to, they would have to connect it.
My question was just, does the language limit us in making, that connection at a later date if it does become readily available? That's all.
Well, yes and no. You can't force them to connect if it becomes available, but if the need arises where they can't adequately be served by septic, yeah, then they'll have to make some arrangements. But no, you can't, if somebody wants to build a house there or some small commercial there, no, you're not going to be able to tell them, hey, you got to bring the sewer here.
Well, it's my understanding, I guess, that this property was like Sarah said at the beginning, and Steve, I'm sure, will elaborate, is that this was all one lot until it got separated, if you will, because of the MoDOT right-of-way purchase.
Yeah, Steve Kinzel, I'm one of the trustees for the Craft Trust. Just to clarify, when you see looks like almost a little box there coming off the highway where the blue lines go up and come over, what they did is they moved the creek back a little bit, and the slope is so steep that they needed all of that to be able to support the highway. So effectively, the property was severed when they condemned the property to get the slope easement. So lot 1 is not big enough. When you consider the slope of that property itself, behind that building that's there, that property just craters down to the creek. So you're not going to see any big development there. She might be able to expand that building just a little bit to add a little more storage. That's never going to be much more than that. And it's been there from the day that Jim Craft built it 25 or 30 years ago. With the piece and so when I asked the engineers, it's going to cost the city or the landowner, whatever, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get up that hill to connect to water and sewer, and you're talking about her personal office with one toilet and one sink. I mean, it's just not ever going to be a heavy usage. When you get to the other piece of property, it's not a problem with respect to the water, because obviously the reason those lines are run on the south side of the highway is because that slope is so full of riprap and so steep on the north side that you can't run a sewer line through there in any economical or even feasible way. So the water line crosses the highway right where the entrance is to what was the little ball fields down there in that little shed, which does not have a toilet or a sink in it. But to get to the sewer, that's going to be a real problem if somebody wants to develop that, because you have to cross somebody else's property, and if you got to be in the MoDOT right-of-way, they're going to resist that because it is so steep and so filled with riprap that support the highway. So what's going on is the user of Lot 1 has a contract to buy that property and keep using it like she's used it for years and years. One of the grandsons and one of the daughters is going to take the property to the right, and they have no immediate plans to use that. Part of that is in the floodplain. It's going to be a little tricky, but obviously if they want a building permit and they want to do something major, they're going to have to figure out how to get water and sewer there, or they're not going to have a feasible use for that property. So there's no real hidden agenda here. We're just trying to move the trust forward, and so that property will end up with one of the daughters and her son, and they have no immediate use for it.
Steve, that entrance, driveway entrance on Lot 2, the larger parcel, is that a 20-foot wide entrance?
I believe it's 40,
Is it 40? Is it a commercial entrance?
I believe.
So to my question, Steve, was, there's no immediate plans, but if we allow this as said, then they could put their own water well and septic system there as opposed to hooking up to city water and sewer in the future.
Not on Lot 2. On Lot 2, we did a carve-out. I negotiated this language extensively with Mark.
Okay.
On Lot 2, because that water comes right over to that entrance and then runs down to the north side of the highway, they would absolutely, by verbiage that we have there, have to connect to the water.
That's what I
The
get.
sewer would be, if they can figure out a way to do a sewer with that amount of property, but again, you're in the floodplain, so it's not going to be very easy to get permits to do that. But the water they would have to hook to.
Okay.
Further questions or discussions, you guys?
Need a motion?
Need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Bear to accept. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it's accepted.
Thank you. We appreciate it on behalf of the family.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Poppy's Place in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Briggs.
Introduced by Briggs.
Okay, this is the final plat.
Right.
Yep. Second reading, please.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Poppy's Place in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Papsel.
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
Bear.
Yes.
Sullentrop.
Yes.
Coulter.
Yep.
By your vote, 8B passes. C, please.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Stonebridge Plat 4 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
All right, so this final plat for Stonebridge, I'm
Need an
sorry,
introduction.
please do, please do.
Patke, thank you.
I'll get it one of these days. We had seen this back in June. We approved this preliminary plat. It's a 38-lot subdivision, and it's just the extension of the Fiddler's Close Road, or Drive. So there has not been any changes. This is just as we had approved back in June. So we're just asking for approval, and you have already approved the minimum improvements, so we're moving forward.
Is, a question I would have, Charles, do we have, to my understanding, based on the letter, they've put in all the public infrastructure, right? It's all been installed. Do we have, when do we get the maintenance bond?
We'll get it before they get the final plat, probably tomorrow or Wednesday.
Well, this is the final plat.
Before they get
Yeah, Friday.
Okay,
make sure that we get the maintenance bond, the escrow.
okay. Well, it wasn't attached to the ordinance, that's the only, it just There's no maintenance agreement on
Yeah,
this.
it's attached to the,
Did I miss it?
the acceptance of the minimum improvements. Should have been anyways. I don't know.
I don't see it on here. That's the reason why I'm asking. Yeah. Can they amend, do you know what the dollar amount for that maintenance would be?
We had it.
104, 825.
That was the same one from earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did, it's done as two separate.
Okay. So it's covered under that one?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm sorry.
We accepted the minimum improvements earlier, now we're accepting the final plat.
Okay, all right. Okay. I'm good. Just making sure.
Okay.
Second
Questions on
reading?
this till we do second reading? Second reading.
Sorry, Vic. Don't mean to make you nervous. Just asking. Ordinance approving the final plat of Stonebridge Plat 4 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Pepsel.
Yes?
Heidrich.
Aye.
Bear.
Yes.
Sullentrup.
Yes.
Coulter.
Yes. By your vote, ordinance 8C passes.
Mayor's report.
I can't think of anything offhand that's really big, you guys, other than the fact, and we talked about this a little bit today in our department head meeting. Well over half of our department heads in the last 3 years are new to their position through one way or another. And to have an organization like ours that cooks right along with that kind of turnover is pretty darn good. And Sean is doing a great job, but most of that falls to the guy sitting next to me. He's mentored 3, 4 people, about to get another 2. So, my thanks to Darren.
Thank you. City Administrator's report. Just some, a couple of things. June 13th is the first Sales Tax Renewal Committee. We put that out for the committee members that the mayor picked to go ahead and sit on that. As most of you know, former Mayor Sandy Lucy will be heading that committee up. And you'll notice with the name, it's Sales Tax Renewal. It's not just specific to capital or transportation, it's both. So they'll be talking about both of those topics. The first meeting will be June 13th, be held right here in the council chambers at 11:30 a.m. And then we'll be talking about parks at that one. July 11th, we'll be talking about emergency response. That'll be the second meeting, again at 11:30 here. We'll skip August and for the fair, and then pick it up again in September, on September the 12th at 11:30 a.m. We will start the meeting for that, and that is the one that we'll talk mainly about transportation. So with that, a segue into transportation, we have discussed with the county commission last week the prospect of moving forward with the proposal that we shared with you a couple of meetings ago, I believe it was, where, again, the city would look to enter into a cost share agreement with MoDOT for the portion of 47 that runs from our existing city limits of Suderman Road down to where it would intersect with the future East-West Parkway, which is approximately 4,000 feet to the south. The city would, Charles's office, well, I'll get to the next steps, but eventually we would be submitting that application to MoDOT. We do have a cost estimate on there, somewhere around 11 million, I will say, in that general range. But the county commission agreed to move forward with, in theory, sharing the cost share with the city, then applying for the SDP funds, which is the federal funds, for the $5.5 million of our share then. So we're also going to be looking and talking with, talking to our other cities within Franklin County to go ahead and not apply for SDP funds in 2026, similar to what the city did for Union in 2021. So that we could have a better chance, if not the best chance, at receiving those federal dollars next winter, spring, in 2026 when they make those announcements. So with that, The next step is Mark is going to be drafting up an intergovernmental agreement between the city and Franklin County. I hope to have something to you to consider in June next month. Looking at Mark, he's nodding.
On county time.
On county time, that's right. And so we'll be looking for that, and then this will allow us then at the earliest to submit that 50/50 cost share to MoDOT in July of this summer, and then that would be voted on, it's my understanding, in September at the MoDOT Commission meeting later this fall. So, and if for some reason there is, if for some reason that deadline is missed, we can still apply in September and then get awarded possibly in December. I don't think the concern so much is the 50/50 cost share. MoDOT feels comfortable that there's a lot of funds available for cities to go ahead and apply for, and they feel very comfortable about our application because, as we explained, it only adds about another $10–11 million basically to the project. And so they've shared what their numbers are. This would assure us some improvements that we would like to see fit for where our city limits end today and where we intend for them to go in the future. So, one other announcement. We did get notice too that we're on the recommended staff list for 2 applications that Charles' office submitted. One was the STP funds for East Fifth Street from Highway 100 down to the bridge. That includes a resurfacing, I think, of the street, added sidewalks on the east side, as well as a center turn lane to help expedite traffic through that whole section. Help with the queues and everything else. So that was good news. The second bit of good news was our CMAQ application for improvements at High Street and 100 was also recommended for funding, which would be 2 dual left turn lanes going out on eastbound 100, but there's not a dedicated right on westbound on that one, right? On westbound, there's not. On the south side of the highway, what improvements are on that side? I can't remember. It'd be dual lefts again and a dedicated right. So those are the scope of the improvements that we've got. But the good news is that we were awarded both of those federal dollars, 80/20 cost share, so that alleviates, burden on our local sales tax. Yes. So it's for that gentleman right there in his office and working with our consultants to go ahead and make that happen. We do have another item I just want to bring up. Obviously, you're all aware of Wayne's departure from us. He's going to be going to the city of Chesterfield. We have a committee that we formed, just like we did back in when we picked Wayne.
2019.
Yeah, 2019, so about 6+ years ago. So we do have that. The good news, we've gotten about 4 qualified candidates that we feel that we can go ahead and get started interviewing. And so we're looking at some dates in early June for that. My goal is to try to see if we could have somebody fill that position by August the 1st, but we'll see how that goes. But that's the goal.
Recommended to fair, right?
Recommended, that's right. Just let them go ahead and say, there's the fair, get out there and see what that's all about. So, no. And then finally, we just received word last Friday, our city planner is going to be leaving us. She has accepted a position with the city of New Haven. She'll be the new city of New Haven city administrator. So we congratulate Sarah on that.
Congratulations, Sarah.
That's part of the mentoring, I guess, that Doug was talking about.
How are you going to be here on Monday nights to do the maps?
Was there something we said?
We're going to have somebody else be here on some Monday nights.
Charles
So
will fill in.
we've just begun on that process to go ahead and do that. So anyway, just wanted to pass those words along. And I do have some items, unfortunately, to share with you in executive session. Council comments.
Good luck, Sarah.
Vote for a check.
I hear I need it. Just kidding.
Okay. Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Padkey.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Pepsel.
Yes?
Heidrich. Bear.
Yes.
Sullentrup. Coulter.
Yes.
Are you